Hey everyone, this is Vikas from Small Academy and welcome to another part of email and phone authentication with Firebase series. And in the last video, we implemented the email authentication, and actually we have not seen that in action, but we have implemented all the necessary code, and simultaneously we also need to verify the user with the OTP. So now in this part we are going to design that layout we need for the phone verification, and we are also going to implement the phone verification, and we will see that in action. Okay, so let's get started. So in the last video we stopped here and we created this verify phone activity, and now we are gonna go ahead and design this layout. And actually, instead of doing everything manually, I'm just going to copy and paste the layout file that I already have created for the final application. So you can get that source code from the GitHub. As I said, I'm gonna link that into the description, and you can just copy and paste the layout. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to my source code and get the layout for that particular activity. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the code here, and inside this I'm gonna paste the layout. And now I'm gonna go to the design view here, and you can see we have this verify OTP layout. And since Firebase sent the OTP with the 6 digit, that's why I have created 6 field here. So these are nothing but edit text field of numbers, so this it's going to take only numbers. Okay, so yeah, it has the 6 fields, and which have the maximum length of only 1, because you can only enter the 1 as a number. And there is one more feature that I wanted to implement here, that is if you have seen the OTP verification activity in other mobile application, then there you can see if you type the one number in one of these fields, it's automatically going to send you to the another field. You don't have to click on this, the application is automatically going to send you to the next field, right? So I wanted to implement that, so that's why I have given the length as 1 here. So if I go down here and go to the max length property, you can see I have given only 1 to all of these fields. Okay, and all of these fields is having its own number, on ID, so that I can extract the OTP from the individual place here. And we have this one text view that says you can generate the OTP after 6 seconds. Okay, so we are also going to let the user regenerate the OTP. So we have this resend OTP button here that is invisible, but if I make it visible, you can see it is having this resend option to resend the OTP after 1 minute. And you can also set this to 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it's up to you, but I'll show you how we can do that in the later in the video. Okay, so for now I'm just going to hide that, because we are only going to display that resend button after the 60 seconds of the first time the OTP is sent to the user. Okay, so let's go back to the verify phone here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as always, create the variable for all these fields. So I'm going to create 6 edit text variable, and I'm going to create 1 button variable, and I'm going to create the resend OTP variable as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So here I'm going to create the edit text field. Okay, so you can see we have field for OTP number 1, OTP 2, 3, 4 and 6, since we have the 6 fields here. And similarly I'm going to create the button variable. So for the resend and the verify button, I'm going to create the variable for those 2 buttons. Okay, so that is verify phone and resend OTP. And now I'm going to create one more boolean field, so that it can keep track of if OTP is valid or not. So we have this boolean OTP valid and true. Okay, now we also need the Firebase authentication instance. So Firebase auth, fauth or Firebase auth. Okay, we also need the phone auth credentials. So phone auth credentials variable. So phone auth credential, and we are also going to need phone auth provider force resending token variable, and that is used for the resending the OTP to the user. So I'll talk about it when we actually implement in the code. So for now, let's just create the phone auth provider dot force resending token. I'm just going to call it as token. Okay, so these are the essential things we need, and other things we'll implement as we go through the code. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to link these variables to the correct XML resources. So I'm just going to write the code that we need. So OTP number 1 2 3 4 5 6 and verify phone number and resend OTP. Okay, so in this way we can connect the XML resources that you already know. So, and now I'm going to validate if all these fields are entered with the number or not. So if user have not entered one of these numbers, then we're going to display the error, just like what we have done here. So I'm just going to create one more validate data field, and we're going to set the error saying that that particular field is required. Okay, so I'm going to write one more method here called validate field, just like what I have done in the previous video. And here you can see I'm setting the error to the required if that is empty, and if that is not empty, then I'm just setting OTP valid boolean value as a true. Okay, and now I'm going to validate all these fields. So let me just copy and paste the code that I have written. Okay, so validate field that I'm going to validate number 1 2 3 4 and 6. So if any one of these data is not valid, then we are not going to proceed after this particular if else condition. Okay, now I'll check before writing the sending the verification to the user. I'm just going to check if OTP is valid or not, and if that is valid, send OTP to the user. Okay, and if that is not valid, then we will not do anything, or maybe we'll just display the error message to the user. Okay, so now before implementing this, we need to implement the callbacks. So we can directly implement the callbacks inside this OTP valid methods. OTP valid actually we can directly implement the callbacks inside this, but I prefer doing that outside, and that is the preferred method by the Google itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create one more variable here for the callbacks. Okay, so I'm going to create the phone auth provider dot on verification state change callbacks. So this callbacks is going to have all the required callbacks like on code sent, on verification, and etc. So I'm going to give the name as m callbacks. So we need these callbacks because we should be able to handle the situation where we can keep track if the OTP is sent to the user or not, if the OTP is entered by the user is valid or not, if the user have the auto verification feature in his phone, then it is automatically going to verify the user, and we should be able to keep track of that and everything. Okay, so that's why we need these callbacks. So now here I'm going to implement the callbacks just before this if else condition here. So m callbacks equals to, I'm just going to create new on state change callbacks, and now here you can see it is automatically overriding the few required methods, that is on verification completed. It is called when verification is completed, and if verification is failed, it's going to call this. And I also need to give the semicolon here since it is the method that we are calling. Okay, so in addition to these two method here, we also need to override few more. So the two more method we need is, one is on code sent, and another one is on auto retrieval timeout. Okay, so if the timeout is occur, then we will let the user to send the new OTP, that is resend OTP So we will use this method to make the resend button visible to the user. Okay, so these are the methods that we need to override to handle the OTP verification in our application. And now if the verification is failed, I'm just going to display an error message to the user saying that verification has been failed. So OTP verification failed. Okay, so this is the message that will be displayed to the user if he is not able to enter the correct OTP to the field that we have given. So now other condition is that if code is sent, right, on code sent, that we need to perform few checks here. So we need to get this verification ID that is sent to this as okay, so this string is a verification ID. We need that to create the auth credentials, and we also need to save this force resending token, because if we want to resend the OTP, then we need to let the application know that we have already tried sending the OTP before. So this token is going to have all that information. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two more variables to keep track of that, and one we have already created for the tokens called as token here, and we also need one more string variable for to store the verification ID. So verification ID. All right, now this verification ID is going to have this ID pass through this particular on code send method. Okay, so now verification ID equals to s. Okay, so this is the string s gonna contain the verification ID of our phone verification method, and one more is token. So I'm just going to pass the force resending token. Okay, we need to keep track of these two things because we need that later in the video. And in case when we are resending the OTP, then in that time our resend button is visible to the user, and when the user click on resend button, I want to hide the resend button, and it should only display the verify button that we have here in this particular layout. So I'm just going to create the field for that. So we have this, so we already have this resend OTP method, resend OTP variable here. I will use this to hide this button just after the code is resent to the user. So set visibility, make it gone. Okay, all right. And now when the timeout is occur, in that case what I want to do is I want to display the resend OTP button to the user so that user can resend the OTP again. So make it visible. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm doing here. This is not that hard, but if you get confused, I know I can get confused sometimes, the way I explain it might be confusing to you. So let me know in the comment below, or you can ask the question in our Facebook group so that I'll be able to clarify your doubts and everything. Okay, so don't just hold back, ask in the comment section, or you can ask in the Facebook group. I'll link that group in the description as well. Okay, so there is anything I can do to make it clear to you, I'll do it. So don't worry about it. So okay, so in case of on code retrieval timeout, we will let the user resend the OTP, and we'll make the resend OTP button that is currently invisible in this XML layout visible here. Okay, using the code. And now if the verification is completed, there is some things we want to do, but before that we need to send the OTP. Okay, so to send the OTP, I'm going to create one more field here, one more method. So public void send OTP. Okay, so this method is going to take the phone number, and it's going to send the OTP. All right, so now to send the OTP, we can use the phone auth, we can use the phone auth provider method of the Firebase authentication. So phone auth provider dot, we need the instance of that, and after that we can call the verify phone number method, And here now we need to pass few arguments. So first one is the phone number, and that phone number is received from the arguments there. And now we need to pass the retrieval timeout method. So a retrieval timeout number, so you can give it in milliseconds or seconds, minutes, that is your choice. So what I want to do is I want the user to be able to resend the OTP after 60 seconds. So I'm just giving 60 seconds here, and I'm gonna set the timeout in second. So time unit dot seconds, and after that I need to pass the activity. So this is the current activity, and now we need to pass the callbacks that we have created before. Okay, so since we are just sending the OTP for the first time, we are not passing any other token and everything. We are just simply sending the OTP to the user. Okay, and this method is going to do that. So yeah, send OTP, and now I will call this OTP whenever I want to send the OTP to the user. Okay, and there is one more method that I want to write to resend the OTP. So